If the lady will yield to a few questions.
Okay. So Senator Drilon is recognized for interpellation.
Will the lady from Capiz yield to a few questions?
Gladly, Mr. President.
Mr. President, this is my 19th year in the Senate, and this is the first time that our Congress is confronted with the situation just described on the record by Senator Hontiveros. We all know that under our Constitution, investigations in Congress are done in aid of legislation. And therefore, witnesses appear not as an accused, but as resource persons in order to clarify certain issues and in order to aid the legislators in crafting laws for the common good, for the good of our country, and for purposes of finding out how else we can amend certain laws that are in the books. That is why we have resource persons. Now, in this particular case, may I know if the lady, if Senator Hontiveros is aware of the legislation ought to be enacted by showing this alleged sex video?
Mr. President, in fact, I do not know of any apparent or even expressed subject in terms of a law that is supposed to be examined for oversight of its implementation in the threatened showing of this alleged video in the course of the House investigation of our colleague, Mr. President.
And if I recall correctly, our colleague from Capiz was in the House of Representatives for 9 years before coming here in the Senate.
For 6 years, Mr. President.
For 6 years. Was there any instance when you were in the House, Mr. President, that you were confronted with a situation where the Justice Secretary and the Chair of the Committee on Justice and the Speaker of the House in unison says, we will show this video?
Never, Mr. President. Never also have I seen a secretary conduct hearings in the House of Representatives. So there was, in a way, a shock upon shock in observing the goings on now around this alleged sex video.
So that you absolutely see no relation whatsoever between any pretended legislation and this purported sex video to be necessary in order to come up with any legislation that is supposed to be enacted.
The only expressed intent I've heard, Mr. President, for the investigation as a whole is to look into certain allegations regarding activities within the New Bilibid prisons, but nothing that I can understand as a fellow legislator that would be impacted by the showing of an alleged sex video.
So what in the view of Mr. President, of our colleague, is the purpose of showing this video?
If I would be so bold as to guess, Mr. President, I'm afraid that the only purpose of threatening to show an alleged sex video, which the supposed subject has already said is not her, and which persons who have watched the video said is not her, is to shame and humiliate, and in fact, over the past few months, batter her into silence in violation of her duties as a fellow legislator, of the legislators who were publicly speaking about this intention. Not at all, Mr. President, in aid of legislation, and certainly I don't think in the highest traditions of the Congress of our Republic, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate.
What do you think should the Senate do under these circumstances, given the fact that our colleague is being subjected to this kind of pressure, harassment that you have just mentioned, Mr. President?
Well, Mr. President, we, 5 other women members of this chamber, already took a step together yesterday, as I saw it, crossing party lines, putting front and center our sisterhood and solidarity as women and as senators to appeal to the Senate, to express the sense of the Senate that on the grounds I mentioned earlier, we oppose and we would strongly condemn any move by the House of Representatives to show such an alleged sex video.
Just a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President, where was the resolution referred to, if it was?
Committee on Rules just today, Mr. Senator Drilon.
Mr. President, yes, I will concur with the answer of the Senate President. It was referred to the Committee on Rules. As a matter of fact, for the information of everyone, before Senator Hontiveros stood up to rise on a point of personal privilege or of public interest, I approached the Senate President and discussed with the Senate President the possibility of reporting out the committee or the resolution now. We just were waiting for her to finish with her privilege speech, Mr. President.
In view of that manifestation, we now terminate our interpellation, given the fact that the Majority Leader, as Chairman of the Committee on Rules, manifested that they're going to come out with a ruling on this resolution, and we can just raise questions, if any, when that appropriate, when the Majority Leader would sponsor that resolution on the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Salamat gid to my fellow Ilonggo Senator. Thank you so much, Mr. Majority Leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader, can I suspend and ask the Senator Drilon to preside, because I want to also interpellate the good senator. So, with the
Yes.
permission of the body, let's a minute suspension.
We're ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
May we recognize the Senate President, Senator Aquilino Pimentel III, Mr. President.
The Senate President is recognized for the period of interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Will the good lady senator yield to a few questions?
Certainly, Mr. President.
Thank you. The subject matter of your speech, Madam Senator, is PS Resolution number 184, which was just referred to the Committee on Rules this afternoon. So I'm sure a lot of us have not had the chance to read the body of the resolution. You cite 3 reasons why the Senate should express its sense that the alleged sex video should not be shown. So one is, it is illegal. Number 2, violative of interparliamentary courtesy and decency, and an affront to women's dignity.
Yes, Mr. President.
I have here Republic Act number 9995, and in your speech you cited, what section did you cite?
I refer, especially, Mr. President, to Section 4, letter D of Republic Act number 9995, entitled Prohibited Acts.
Yes. But I'd like to bring our attention to Section 7 also of the same law, making the recording or the video recording inadmissible as evidence, even in a legislative hearing or investigation. So I think that should be an additional ground to argue for the illegality of the contemplated act of Congress. I just want
Thank
to
you,
be,
Mr. President. Will do.
but I want to be educated more on why it would be violative of interparliamentary courtesy.
Thank you, Mr. President. It would be violative of interparliamentary courtesy because as I learned when I was working in the House of Representatives, and as I continue to learn here now in the Senate, there is that institutional courtesy across the divide between the House of Representatives and the Senate among fellow legislators, all of whom are supposed to be working in harmony or in principal disagreement with each other in order to craft a policy framework for our country. A policy framework that will advance various goods, including human dignity, human equality, and gender equality. Therefore, such an act, which is so obviously springing from sexism and misogyny, which would undermine our efforts to uplift the dignity of women and the equality among women and men of different sexual orientations and gender identities, would set it back. It would be an action totally opposed to the spirit of, in fact, the values enshrined in our Constitution, Mr. President.
When, during the earlier interpellation, you discussed the lack of subject matter in aid of legislation of the House committee conducting the investigation, did we also not violate interparliamentary courtesy?
Well, if I did, Mr.
When we are now questioning now the motive of a fellow legislative of a committee of the other chamber of the Congress.
If I have done so, Mr. President, I am willing to stand corrected. And even as I stand corrected, I will still fight for a recognition on the part of our colleagues in the House of Representatives of the courtesy they owe to not just our colleague, but their colleague in the Congress of the Republic.
So I think the better attitude is for us to accept the declaration of a committee of the House that their investigation is in aid of legislation, out of courtesy.
Mr. President, I would be willing to do that if they could indeed point out that the conduct of their investigation, not the investigation per se, but this conduct of threatening to show an alleged video is in aid of legislation, except also for the fact, Mr. President, and may I thank the good Senator Pangilinan for reminding me, Rule 34 of our rules, entitled Unparliamentary Acts and Language, under Section 93 provides, and I quote, "Acts and language which offend the senator or any public institution shall be deemed unparliamentary." So perhaps we would still be within our rights as a Senate, as one of the houses of the Congress of the Republic, to remind the House of Representatives not to engage in such acts and language offensive to a senator or any public institution, Mr. President.
Actually, I believe that there is no video. There is no actual video. Some have shown me a video, but it does not involve any member of the Senate. It is a video. It is a sex video, but it does not involve any member of the Senate. So there is no video. And during their last hearing, before their last hearing, they also hyped the showing of a video. And what did they show? They showed the Gangs of the World video. It's correct that they showed a video, but it was about this documentary on the gangs of the world. At any rate, Mr. President, Madam Senator, I think it's also in our rules that the Committee on Rules can immediately act on your proposed Senate resolution, because I am in favor of expressing the sense of the Senate that showing that alleged sex video is illegal. I am for the legality. But just for the information of everyone, the Speaker has categorically stated to me that no such video will be shown in the hearing, I think on Thursday. So even though the answer makes the resolution moot and academic, I will leave it up to the body if we want to pass the resolution to guide future actions, future issues concerning this alleged sex video. But my personal belief is that there is no such video.
Mr. President, if indeed there is no such video, if indeed, as the Justice Secretary just this afternoon said, we are not in possession of any such video, we will not show any such video, well and good. But 2 points, Mr. President. I'm glad that in a way the Senate President has been prophetic in his recent statements, because the Senate President himself said previously that there would be a political price to pay if the video is shown, which I was proud to associate myself with as a member of the Senate under the Senate President. Secondly, Mr. President, I have 3 points on this, Mr. President. Secondly, the mere threat of showing such an alleged sex video in order, out of sexism and misogyny, to silence a fellow legislator is already inherently unparliamentary. And for me, as a humble member of this chamber, deserves a word from us to the other house. And last but not the least, Mr. President, because of this, and I thank, salamat kaayo to Senate President for associating himself with the issue of legality that we women senators raised in our resolution. Therefore, such a resolution and such an issue can never be moot and academic. Every time sexism or misogyny raises its head against any woman or any girl, whether in our families and homes, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our institutions, and we too, the Senate, are a workplace, and of course, one of the most prestigious institutions of our land, we have to call it for what it is. And we have to tell off those who speak from a position of power and abuse it, not to undermine sexism and misogyny, but to further ingrain it in our society and our culture, and make it that much more difficult for women and girls, and for men and boys who are trying to liberate our society from this terrible aspect of our society, that much more difficult. Thank you, Mr. President.
And as the president of PDP Laban, I made it a party directive to the party mates in the House. Should it be put to a vote, they should vote against the showing of the video.
Daghang salamat, Senate President.
So I think this is there will be no showing of any video on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. President.
But I thank you for also introducing this concept of interparliamentary courtesy, because this is not a fixed concept. So I would just like to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to read up on this subject matter so we can understand better what is this concept of interparliamentary courtesy and when it is properly invoked. So thank you very much.
I will do so
Thank you,
also, Mr. President. One last addition, Mr. President, just the threat of violence is damaging just as the actual violence is. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. President, may we recognize Senator J.V. Ejercito.
Mr. President, Your Honor,
Senator Ejercito is recognized.
yes, Your Honor, allow me to commend our lady senators today for standing up for what I also believe is an affront to women's rights and dignity. May I just make a manifestation? I won't interpolate. May I briefly manifest that I'm fully against the showing of an alleged sex video of our colleague, Senator Laila De Lima, the ongoing investigation in Congress. As I said earlier, it is in violation of the Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Act of 2009. But more than the violation of this law, interparliamentary courtesies and fairness dictate that we respect the rights and dignity of our fellow men, especially women, even if they have been proven guilty. Senator De Lima's guilt has yet to be proven in the said investigation. I urge our colleagues in Congress to heed our call for interparliamentary courtesy and be respectful at all times in our quest for truth and justice. Let this august body remain the stalwarts of decency, reason, empathy, compassion, and everything that we have sworn to do and protect to make humanity thrive. We are waging a war against drugs and criminality, not against our women, and especially not against our very own humanity. After all, we are men. Thank you, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay kayo, Mr. President.
Senator Subiri, with the permission of Senator Subiri.
If it's all right with the Majority Floor Leader. Yeah, Mr. President, as a matter of fact, we'd like to put on record that last night we were together with Senator Sherwin, Senator Joel, Senator Sonny, and Senator JV. We were going to come up with an open letter to the House of Representatives appealing to them, being former members of the House, and to show interparliamentary courtesy, at the same time for appealing to their decency and civility for all women of the world. That we all have children, and I have a daughter, and that we don't want this to show that we are condoning such acts of uncivilized behavior. And unfortunately today, fortunately the speaker had come out and saying that they were not going to anymore show the video, so we were not able to get together and sign the letter. But to show solidarity with our women legislators, we were already planning it last night to show support to this, to our chamber and to the women of the Philippines and the women of the world, that we still will fight for dignity and civility, Mr. President. Being also former members, the tables can be turned. And if the tables are turned, we also should show our dignity and civility as a chamber to fellow members of an equal chamber, which is the House of Representatives. I would just like to put that on record, Mr. President. Thank you. And we support the resolution. We have our vote.
Daghang salamat, Mr. President, and to all of you, thank you very much.
Senator Pangilinan, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Pangilinan is there.
Yes, just a manifestation, Mr. President. Mr. President, last Tuesday, members of the Liberal Party in the Senate issued a statement opposing the showing of the video as being illegal and so contrary to law, as well as contrary to the basic principles of parliamentary courtesy, among others. We're very happy, Mr. President, that it is now a bipartisan or multi-partisan commitment, Mr. President, and therefore we just wanted to place that on record, that we appreciate our colleagues in the Senate standing by what we believe to be necessary, not to protect one of our own, but to uphold, really, one, parliamentary courtesy as a hallowed tradition in Congress, and two, of course, our concern about women and respect for women in general. So, for the record, Mr. President, we just wanted that manifest.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned earlier, as early as the time this was being read into the records, I already asked the Senate President and the other members of the Committee on Rules on the subject matter. I brought it up because for the information of everyone, just in case you didn't know, my mother is one of the founders of the women's rights movement in the Philippines, and also the President Emerita of Kababaihang Rizalista. That is why I was brought up well by a woman. I think so, Mr. President. So with the consent of the Chamber, I move for the consideration of PS Resolution 184.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, PS Resolution number 184 is in order.
Maraming salamat.
May we
po,
ask the
mga
Secretary to read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the complete or the entire text of the resolution.
A resolution expressing the sense of the Senate that the proposal to show the alleged sex video attributed to Senator Laila de Lima is illegal, violative of interparliamentary courtesy and decency, and an affront to women's dignity.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Senator Ontiveros has expressed her mind and the perspective on this particular resolution already, and I know for a fact that we will be having a unanimous consent to the resolution. So may we recognize Senator
Senator
Drilon?
Drilon is recognized.
Mr. President, the resolution is not very long. And in fact, the Senate President has asked me earlier whether I have read it or not. Maybe, just for the record, may we propose that we read the entire resolution, as it will not take more than 3 minutes for the Secretary to read it.
Majority Leader?
The Secretariat, Mr. President, may we request the Secretariat to read the resolution, the entire text of the resolution.
If there is no objection, okay, the Secretary is directed to read the entire text of the resolution.
Whereas Senator Laila de Lima is the subject of a House investigation on her alleged involvement in drug-related activities at the Bilibid Penitentiary, whereas some members of the House of Representatives are pushing for the showing of a video allegedly depicting the senator in acts of sexual nature, whereas showing this video violates Republic Act 9995 or the Anti-Photo or Video Voyeurism Act of 2009 and Republic Act 4200 or the Anti-Wiretapping Law, whereas it violates the time-honored principle of interparliamentary courtesy, given that Senator de Lima is a sitting senator and should therefore not be subjected to the ridicule and ignominy of a purported sex video, whereas, most importantly, it is a blow to our collective struggle to uplift the dignity of the woman, respect her agency and her autonomy over her own body, and is a form of slut-shaming that will not set a good example for the country. Now, therefore, be it resolved, as it is hereby resolved, to express the sense of the Senate to condemn and oppose in the strongest possible terms the proposal to show the alleged sex video in the congressional probe at the House of Representatives. Senator Ana Teresa Risa Hontiveros and other signatories.
Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. May I move that all members of the Senate be made the co-authors of the resolution?
There is a motion to make all members of the Senate present today as co-authors. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
With that, Mr. President, I think the message of the message of the Senate is the same message that Senator Pacquiao always receives in the ring: no hitting below the belt. May we recognize Senator
Senator De Lima is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. In all sincerity and humility, I wish to express my profound appreciation to my dear colleagues for this gesture. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Senator De Lima.